Everybody ready? Okay, we'll call our Forest and Beach meeting to order.
Commissioner Burling?
Here.
Chair Brzezowski?
Here.
Commissioner Mickey?
Here.
Commissioner Jerry?
Here.
Commissioner Ruda?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any announcements today, Mary?
Sure,
Okay.
just a couple.
Okay.
Earth Day is this month, and it is on Saturday, April 26th, from 10 to at Devonworth Park. And I also just wanted to announce that the city clerk is working with the council to schedule a special meeting to hear the pickleball issue. They haven't nailed a date down yet, but we will be sure to let everybody know once a date is nailed down. Staff has obtained quotes for the installation of the locks on the gates, and staff is working with our administration regarding those gate locks. And in the meantime, our facility maintenance contractors are going to continue to lock up the pickleball nets as scheduled by the Forest and Beach Commission, which is Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, with the caveat that on Saturdays, they are only available to lock them up at 6 p.m. and not 4 p.m. So we, on the staff level, have, that's the only thing we can do since we don't have staff working on Saturdays. Thanks.
Will that get reflected?
In the minutes?
Yeah, no, in the recommendation.
In the recommendation
To city
to,
council?
yes.
Any questions for Mary on any announcement? Okay. Okay, before we move to public appearances.
I have one quick question for Mary. So that will be recommended to the council on a temporary basis, but when the locks on the doors are in and they'll be locked, will the hours be 10 to 4 still? Or is the 10 to 6 a temporary thing until we have locks?
10 to 6 is temporary because that's when our contractors can do it. But
Right.
Yeah, but
Once we, okay.
that's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Under the Brown Act, public comment for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of this legislative body. Hateful, violent, and threatening speech is impermissible public comment as it disrupts the conduct of the public meeting. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements of the Brown Act in the meeting, then that speaker will be muted. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comment shall be limited to 3 minutes. Matters not appearing on the commission's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is always helpful for speakers to state their names so that they may be identified in the minutes of the meeting. Do we have anybody that would like to make a public comment or a public appearance at this time for a matter not on the agenda? Melanie?
Violate the Brown Act. Good afternoon, all of you. I love your beautiful picture up here. Very inspiring, but a little bit intimidating. Anyway, today what I want to talk to you about is carbon sequestration, which is, a very important thing with climate change. And right now I'm doing a tremendous amount of reading and writing on this particular issue. And since we live in a forest that is rapidly being diminished, I wanted to kind of bring up to you the importance of this. And please remember this, and I know Justin does, but every tree we cut down in this community, and especially if it's not absolutely necessary, releases all of that carbon back into the atmosphere and back into this village. And it's another loss because there's no way to get it back, not unless we start planting more trees. And so the carbon issue for fighting climate change in our community, which we have a whole plan about, which really doesn't address the importance of the forest in protecting all of us, I might add, is really something that I would ask you guys to really think about, because it is exceedingly important. There are many, many advantages to the protection of us by this forest, but the carbon sequestration is extremely important, not just for us living here, but for the whole peninsula, because it's cumulative. And so not only do we lose what we have stored up in this community, but we've lost the ability to capture anything back because of our lack of reforestation. So please, every time we think about cutting down trees that are absolutely not necessary to be cut down, that are discretionary, so to speak, that's very, very important. And I was really pleased, and I'm sure all of you were, to find out that the mayor is very instrumental in getting a watering truck for us, because I don't know how much all of you walk, but I do a lot to stay vertical. And it's amazing. We're planting trees, but no one's watering them. And I can just tell you, I carted water for quite a long time, Harvey and I did, to this one tree that was like 4 or 5 blocks from us, and it eventually died because of it. But I'd like you to think about this and do some reading of your own if you don't, believe what I'm saying. It's just, I think, very important for us.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment at this time? No.
We have
Okay.
Linda online.
Is there anybody online?
Linda.
Okay.
Linda, go ahead.
Hi all. Thank Melanie for bringing up the climate warming issue and the carbon sequestration issue. One thing that perhaps you don't know is that Monterey pines suck up carbon because they grow very, very fast. And in New Zealand, and I believe in Chile too, but in New Zealand, they are actually planting Monterey pines as mitigation against climate change. So that's something to think of. We actually have the native tree that others are planting to combat climate change. So Melanie's so right. We really ought to be planting Monterey pines. And I'm watching the skyline just disappear. It's changing my view from my window. The light glares through as the pines come down. And I'm noticing, too, that some of the deodar cedars, which are Himalayan species, are now getting up into the canopy. And boy, do they look scrawny and awful. I mean, they just look like they just don't belong. So I'm hopeful that we'll get busy planting Monterey pines, because they do grow pretty fast and in the right places, of course. I know that. But I have a question, and that is, yesterday when I was at Planning Commission meeting, I read the agenda. It was over 500 pages long, and I came across and this is for Justin, I think, a series of data. One was on code enforcement actions that had been taken, and the other one was on tree permits and the status of tree permits. And it listed a whole bunch of tree permits that were either have been approved or were in the process of being approved, or maybe just in review, I think it said. And all of a sudden, those documents disappeared out of that packet. And I'm wondering, that seems like information that might be good to have in the public venue so people could see where trees are being cut down, because I just every day now hear buzzsaws, and I'm always alarmed, wondering what tree is coming down next, and just would like to know. And so I'm wondering if you all could put that data online somehow for people to be able to see. Also, the code enforcement data was interesting too, to see who's short-term renting when they shouldn't, et cetera, building fences when they shouldn't. That sort of data is of interest, I think, to the residents, and that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. And just know that we're not being rude, but we're not really supposed to engage in a conversation when people make a public appearance or a public comment. So your questions are noted, but those will have to be followed up with separately. Yeah.
Right, understand.
Okay. It's just a process. I just want to make sure no one thinks we're being rude here. Okay. In terms of, are there any other people that would like to make a public comment or a public appearance at this time? Sure. And it's not on any matter related to an agenda item today, correct?
I'm not sure what the agenda is.
Oh, okay.
I just stumbled in here, and
Okay.
I guess I am the Lorax, and I am speaking on behalf of the trees also.
Okay.
I like the trees, and it does seem like there's a lot of them coming down. I think it seems like people are probably afraid of fire or something, but I don't think trees are causing the fire, and I think that we should try to keep as many of them as possible for all the reasons mentioned. So I speak for the trees.
Thank you. You and many other people in our town. Thank you. Okay. If we have no other public appearances, we'll move to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda today: the acting public director's report for March and the approval of our last meeting minutes. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or public may ask that items be considered individually for purposes of commission discussion and/or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all the recommended actions of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jerry.
Commissioner Burling?
Here.
Chair Brzezowski?
Yes. Not here. Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey?
Yes.
Commissioner Jerry?
Yes.
Commissioner Ruda?
Yes.
Thank you. This motion is passed.
Okay. We have one public hearing today. That is approve or deny a removal of a significant coastal live oak at the corner of Santa Fe and 5th. Justin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. All right, let me pull up the staff report so I can show you the plans when we get there. You have to go over because it's 36 by 24. No, it's fine. All right. So this public hearing is to approve or deny, approve or deny the removal of one significant coast live oak tree at the southeast corner of Santa Fe and 5th for the purposes of construction. The recommendation staff is bringing you is to deny the removal of the oak for the purpose of construction. But should the tree be approved for removal, staff recommends requiring replanting of one upper canopy tree at the applicant's expense in a nearby city right-of-way. The background of this project, the architect, Adam Jesselnick, submitted a tree permit application in early 2025, the fiscal year 2025, for the removal of one 18-inch diameter coast live oak tree on private property to accommodate the addition and second story for the construction on the house.
I'm sorry, when was that submitted initially, Justin?
Let me look at the permit. The permit was submitted January 17th, 2025.
Okay.
Sorry, I said fiscal
When
year.
you said fiscal,
I know
I'm
I
nervous
was.
that they submitted it in July and we
Yeah.
haven't seen it yet.
I was confused there. I apologize. It was submitted at the beginning of this year. So last May, I met with the architect Adam Jesselnick and Evan Court, the planner, for the preliminary site assessment, where we looked at all the trees and discussed the project, or a potential project. And I examined all the trees with this tree, number 12, in the preliminary site assessment being considered significant per the city's significant tree findings. The tree is mature and in good health, and while it's inside a deck, the house was built around the tree, and it's an interesting feature on the property. The reasoning why I'm recommending denial is the findings in the tree code for removal of significant trees for construction. It's not a risk to public health, and it doesn't meet the 4 conditions, which would be the existing site is vacant or developed to an extent less than 1/3 the base floor area. I believe that the available land area on the site not occupied by significant trees does not adequately and practically provide. I feel like there's room on the site not occupied by significant trees for development outside of encroaching on this tree. And I do not believe a variance or alternative designs have been explored. So with those findings and the tree being healthy, I would recommend denial of the removal. The current tree situation on site, though, there are 14 lower canopy trees on site with many more off site. So it is a heavily populated lot. And so this is just the application impacting existing house. It's the applicant is worried about the impact to the existing house, although none was found on site when we were there. Really, this is for the sake of construction, because this is the proposed site plan, just the full coverage. The addition with the second story is planned to go through the tree. But as you can see, there are a number of trees on site. This is the site map from the preliminary site assessment. There are a lot of trees. So again, the PSA is here if you want to look over the ratings on the trees, but the applicant is here if you have questions for him.
Does anybody have questions for Justin before we open it up to public comment?
I had a question.
For me?
For you.
Okay.
If this wasn't construction, would you consider this health and safety? Because I know on the form, on the permit application, Mr. Jesselnick mentioned that there's potential impact to the roof, to the side, to the foundation.
I would not. I looked at trees like this the other day that are totally healthy, and I had to tell the person that why. These trees aren't impacting anything. I don't see an imminent failure. I don't see a health problem or a pest disease problem to the surrounding forest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward? Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you. I'm Adam Jesselnick. I'm the architect for Elizabeth Gonzalez, the owner of this property. When they hired me, they basically had questions about the process in Carmel, what might be possible to build here, what are some of the conditions and parameters around trees. They do really love the house. It's an older cottage. It was built in at least 3 phases that I could tell. So the front part of the house at the corner of the lot was sort of an original old Carmel cottage, and then it's been added on to twice already. But they do hope to spend more time here, to become full-time residents. And so for the use of the home, they do want to modernize the interior and, be able to add on some additional square footage. So, we identified the second floor as a good possibility for adding square footage. And I think that's really when this tree sort of started to come into the discussion, because although the current deck is built around it, as the tree canopy, sort of spreads out over the house, there are certainly some potential impacts to existing limbs. There's light impacts as well. And as Justin pointed out, it's a really heavily forested lot with a lot of really healthy oak trees. I think all 14 of the current sort of significant trees on the lot are oaks. So, we're looking at the areas that we've proposed to add on. You can see it in this map, small addition at the entry, the addition at the deck, which is for the kitchen, and then this other small area for the bathroom. So, sort of really minuscule, additions based on, again, the existing tree coverage and the lot coverage and the setbacks. So I think it is a modest proposal that we're coming forward with for design, and I understand the tree conditions as outlined by Justin, specific to purposes of construction. But I do feel that this is a tree that, regardless of construction or not, the owners would be interested in removing, just because of the impacts on light and the usability of the deck. And as I've personally had the misfortune of happening, it's these trees that hang directly over roofs can be concerning, especially when they're bigger trees and bigger branches. Very real impacts with the storms that we've had here the last couple of years. So for those reasons, that's why we're here today, to hear and get your input, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the project.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question for Adam?
Well, I do. If that tree remained, what other options do they have?
So alternatives for design for the project, most likely the square footage that we lose there, we'd probably put into a portion of the second floor and maybe redesign that second floor element to be sort of out of the tree canopy. I do think it's less consistent with the design guidelines and with the general plan to do that, because I think that it would have some other sort of ripple effects by changing the design that way, but it's certainly something that we've looked at. Yeah.
I mean, you could also, instead of going up, you could go out and take out more trees, right? It's a very forested property. If you weren't allowed to go up, you might impact.
Yeah,
Trees, right?
any sort of more significant addition at the ground floor would definitely impact
Take
more
out more
trees,
trees,
and,
right?
and would definitely be into the tree protection zone.
Right.
Can I ask you how long the homeowner has been in the home? How long they've owned it?
They've had it probably 2 years now.
2 years, okay.
Do we have any? Oh,
Okay.
I think we're good. Thank
All
you,
right.
Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually had a follow-on for Justin.
Okay,
not
that
for-
will come back to our
Okay.
discussion in
Right.
just next. Do we have anybody that would like to make a public comment on this application today? Okay. Give that just the time.
I'd just like to say that I agree with the staff's recommendation. Even though there are a lot of trees potentially on the property, that's not the issue. The issue is this is a very significant tree, and it's been there quite a long time. And I just think that we have to remember what the rules of the road are in this city about trees. And the trees come first and then the development second. It bends to the will of planning. And right now, the tree is fine. It's no problem. If he can add something to the second floor, then that's fine. But when Justin goes out to a project like he has, and he makes a recommendation, it's for a reason, because there are standards and there are definite statements in the general plan relating to the forest and what we are supposed to be doing, and those relate to preserving the significant trees. And if someone can do something else on the property that preserves that tree, then that's what should be done. And our oak trees have suffered horribly in the last number of years. And I think that everyone that can be saved, especially if you can move an addition around, that is very important. And I'm glad that the applicant's representative made that clear. But I would totally support Justin's decision, and also I thank him very much for explaining why he made that decision. I mean, he really has to come to that when he follows the rules of the city regarding the removal of trees for development purposes. So thank you, Justin, and I hope the commission supports staff. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that would like to make a public comment?
I have Linda
Okay.
on Zoom. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, yes, I too want to say I support Justin's assessment of the tree. You know, it takes a long time for an oak to get to be a significant tree. And, you know, our general plan is not a well-used recommendation, but it does encourage property owners to build smaller in order to accommodate trees and to protect the forest. So that's always an option too. But I also support Justin's assessment of this situation, and thank him very much.
Thank you, Linda. We have one more person, I think, that wants to make a public comment.
I would add a little bit of nuance to my previous comment. I don't think it's either or all the time. I think.
Could you put the microphone closer to you? You have to hold it a little bit.
I said it's not always an either or situation. I think tree maintenance is very helpful, but the thing that kind of makes me feel nervous is when trees just disappear. And in this particular situation, which I'm not really aware of or exactly, but it looks like it's a lower floor addition. But if it was a upper floor and you could manipulate the canopy a little bit to make more space and to keep things off of the roof, because I know that leaves can clog up gutters and you know, you don't want things falling on your roof. So I totally am for general maintenance of the trees, but and like I said, I'm not really aware of this particular situation, but I just know when I'm driving down the road and I'm seeing trees fall down all over the place along the streets. It's kind of like, well, what's going on? So just a caveat, as I'm not an either or person. I think that there's plenty of nuance, and tree maintenance is important, but removal makes me nervous sometimes.
Thank you. Okay, let's bring it, with no further comment, let's bring it back into the commission for discussion. Neil, you had a question? Do you want to start? You can, if you had a question, go for it. And we'll just have some commission discussion on the application.
All right. So I know in the application it mentioned if the tree was removed that they would plant one in the public right away. Mm-hmm. So how does that work? I mean, and how do we make sure that it doesn't die in a year?
We have an in lieu fee, and then we'd have to put the tag on it like you would do normally for on a site. And because it'd be a city tree, we'd have to maintain it. And if it died, we'd have to go back and replace it. But it's really all encompassed in the in lieu fee. That takes into account, it's $800, and it takes into account 5-year maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Let me add something, because there is the option, Neil, of having the city plant it someplace else. It doesn't have to be planted on the same property. There are, how many, 14 oaks there already, is it?
I think it's 13 oaks and a
13.
and a other lower canopy tree, juniper.
Just on their property. There's probably another 14 in the public right-of-way on
At
that
least.
lot. At least.
At least.
Right, so this
Yeah,
is
it's
a heavily
forested.
forested parcel.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have a comment? Jerry?
The one thing I noticed was that was the best oak tree in the whole lot. When you looked at it, it's got the best form, it's the healthiest, and without any second-story plans in front of me, and trying to take this tree out for what I see in front of me is a very small add-on to a room.
Right at the northeast.
Yeah, it's that addition is a lot less significant than that tree to the lot, in my opinion. I'm just asking, the condition of the other trees are such, the odds of any of those getting to that stature in the next 4 or 5 decades is slim by virtue of where they're located, how close they are to other small oaks. That is the best oak tree on the lot. So there'd have to be a lot of other mitigating factors for that, in my thoughts, for coming out right now without additional investigation. And I'm not familiar with the variance process, but as I recall, your recommendation included with no next steps regarding any variances to what we have as existing codes on removing a tree. This to me does not seem to be a slam dunk removal. So at this point, that's my comment.
My concern is that the tree is so close to the house presently, and while the house was originally built with that tree there, you know, it's really 5 or 10 years from now, is that tree going to cause foundation damage? Is it going to cause, are people going to be afraid the branches are going to fall on them? I mean, we have people come in here all the time with expressing safety concerns about trees with branches overhanging their home. And it would be unfortunate for the property owner, I believe, for them to redo their plans only to within 5 or 10 years be back here asking for the tree to be removed for out of safety concerns, right? That seems an unfair burden to put on a property owner. And if they go out, if you look at the parcel, if they, instead of going up, if they decide to take up more space of the lot, they're gonna be asking for more trees to come down, I think, because any direction around the house is gonna be multiple oak trees that get requested to be removed, right?
Yes, and Jerry, the variance is in reference to the setbacks, so you can apply, you don't always get it, but you get apply for either a setback or building out into the right of way.
For the actual construction?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so it is more black and white on that tree removal at this
I
point.
can't hear you good.
It is more, it is a black and white issue as far as remove or not remove this tree today, as far as our opinion goes.
Yeah,
and
this is
what
the initial, this
Yeah.
is what we're looking at. There's no,
Right,
I don't think any alternative's been explored with me.
right.
I don't know about with Evan either.
Okay.
There is one more 18-inch oak on the property towards the back, and it looked pretty good. The oaks aren't going to get very big with so many in the small area. And to me, a person's home is every bit as important as one oak tree. And so I believe people should have the option of moving a tree or removing a tree if it isn't taking all the trees away. They're way above the recommended amount of trees on a lot in Carmel. So to me, even though it's a fairly nice looking tree, though it's not, I mean, it's cluttered because the whole bottom part of it is, not very visible unless you're standing over by the side. So it seems very reasonable to take this one down and maybe encourage a few of the others if they want. They are so far over what one has to have on a 40 by 100 lot.
Anybody else have a question or perspective?
Justin, how old
Yeah.
is the tree roughly?
I'd say at that size, with that crown spread, most likely at least 40 to 50 to 60 years old. Adam, when did you say the house was built? Because you said it was built around the tree.
1941 was the first house. The first edition was 71.
Okay. So I'd say in between there, so that would put us at, 60, maybe 70 even. It's hard to tell because with so many other trees and the house being there, it's probably not going to grow to its full capacity at that size. But
Right.
knowing that the additions were planned around it gives us a good way to date it.
The initial plans for the home, the tree was there. Have you seen the initial plans? Are they in the file?
Was it the initial, Adam, or was it the addition?
It's unclear. Thank you, Adam Jesselnick again. It's unclear from the 1941 original building permit plans if the tree was there.
Okay. So that's almost 85 years ago if it's,
But it's
If
unclear.
it was-
71 would be 50 years ago. The addition, it was there for the addition in 1971, so that would be 50 years
Yeah,
ago.
it was
Just
clear.
kinda
It was
just-
clear from the 1971 plans
okay,
that the tree was there, but not
Okay.
in the 41.
okay,
Perfect.
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
We've seen a lot of, people come in with trees this close to structures that were originally built around that have become problematic over time with foundations, with we have, and they're not always oaks, sometimes they're pines, sometimes there's that Tory pine that people were happy to have come down that was tearing up that person's interior of their home, right? So I think if someone's making an investment in their home, an upgrade or an investment, they're making this investment for the next presumably 20, 30, 40 years of the value of the life of the home. They're not making it it's not like they're just painting the house for a paint job, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we need to think about that tree over the next 20, 30, 40 years. And the probability that we would, if we force them to keep the tree, the probability that we'll see that tree back in this commission again within the next 10 to 20 years is probably high, right? So I would be in favor, particularly because the number of trees on the property, of telling planning that we would be amenable to the removal. And I don't know about forcing the planting of another tree. To me, it seems like, I'm just wondering if they could benefit by some better arboring of the many trees that are on that property. Like, for example, if they, instead of 14 scraggly trees, could it be a property that had 3 nice trees with the right arborist approach? I don't know. That's in the scientific area, right?
Yeah, and
but some of the growth of those trees is being limited by the number of trees compressed into that small space.
Yeah,
right?
It is an interesting
Yeah.
question, thinking of Melanie's comment. It was when you have, and I don't know the answer to this, but if you have 10 very small oaks, are you better off with 3 big oaks that really have many more leaves and so on? And I don't know the answer to that, but it's a thought.
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer, but it is a very common ecological process where you have a bunch of trees come up as kind of a carpet, and then eventually, you can see it in the forest. Some eventually win, and the other ones will die or get subordinated, and the biggest, healthiest ones will fight for the water and the nutrients, and they'll rise above the rest of the canopy.
I think how I see this tree, sort of what Kelly's saying, there's really nothing at the moment that makes us look at the tree. The tree itself isn't dying. It's not impeding on the structure yet, but we're sort of on the precipice of that in the next, 10 or so years. It's very close to the house. That's the one concern. It's very close to the house. And if there's any growth, dropping of branches, fire, it's right there. It's tough because the tree is healthy, and I know that Justin made the recommendation that he should, because it doesn't fit into the categories of what we're supposed to be looking at. But there are other factors that Kelly had mentioned. And I think that's what's difficult. That's why I'm sort of just trying to sort of take in what's going on. And what Sarah said, this is their home. There are 14 oak trees on this property. If they want to expand their home, there are enough trees on the lot. And with the fact that you could be back in 10 years or so with a problem, I think that the homeowner's trying to perhaps even get ahead of having a problem with the removal of this tree.
Yeah.
No,
just we should talk.
Those are just some of the thoughts that I'm having about what's going on. It's difficult because it is a healthy tree, So it probably is one of the best trees on the lot. So that's unfortunate.
Which actually isn't saying too much, though. It's a relatively
it is
small
a small
tree.
little. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
I think these are challenging, right? Because these cut right at the crux of someone's ability to make an improvement to a home when they have a tree that you can touch from the window, right? It's that close.
It is.
I think it's been, the only thing that makes this situation easier for me is that there's 14 oak trees on this 4,000 square foot lot right now. That's a lot. It's, 4 or 5 times what our recommended guideline is.
Right.
And that when we face cases like this where there are not other trees on the property, it feels like it's much harder.
Right.
But I think they are this parcel, in terms of number of trees on a 4,000 square foot parcel, is way over indexing versus what our city's recommendations are and what many people have on their lots in Carmel.
Plus the city property on both sides, since it's at a corner, there's more trees. I mean, it's really a very treed.
But this is a 70-plus-year-old tree. Let's not forget that. And the other trees are
Maybe, I think.
much
but
less.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a mature tree.
50 to 70, yes, it's in that range.
Yeah.
At least, what'd you say, 50? 71, yeah, at least 50.
I'm 75. I've watched an oak tree grow from this height to 45 and that same width in my
But
yard.
this one's not going to make that, Jerry.
No, it's never going to make it because there's competition. But
Well, not just competition, but it's in such a condensed area. I mean, it doesn't. How much value is the dirt underneath because because the house is kind of around it? I mean, is that a healthy setting for a tree?
I mean, trees growing well. I mean, that's hard to say what, trees deny expectations all the time, like what is healthy for a tree and what isn't. You see trees grow out of cracks and rocks. But, I understand what you're saying. It's not ideal compared to an open grown space, but it seems to be doing okay in there.
I will add that the other one that was right next to it, about 7 feet away, I decided not to take down. And it's like this. It's like this. The other one that's about 70 7 years old is maybe this much bigger. I think your concerns for growth in 10 or 15 years would probably be more important if it were a redwood or a pine, but not a coast live oak, because their growth rings are pretty darn small. The capacity for the roots to start lifting by the time they get near the end of their age, which this one is not, have an impact on foundations as well as anything that's around it within what, about 18 inches of the surface?
Yeah, that's about where most surface roots
Yeah.
are, especially here.
So I'm playing devil's advocate here. There's a lot of reasons. There are reasons enough to leave it. There's reasons enough to take it out, and that's why it's not an easy decision. And we just have to decide which one we're going to take.
Well, I'd be willing to move as that the tree should be removed, and there's the requirement of replanting a oak tree at the applicant's expense at a nearby city right-of-way. Be my motion.
Can I make one thing? Just in the motion, can we say conditionally approved with the approval of Planning Commission? Yeah.
That's good. Let's have that. Can you have that? Does anyone second it?
I'll second. Am I allowed to second? Yes. Okay, I'll second.
Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Chair Brzezowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Jerry,
No.
Commissioner Ruda,
No.
the motion is passed.
And Justin, your friendly amendment, I want to double check. I know we've already voted, but that was that it's contingent upon Planning Commission approval of the plans, correct?
Yeah, approve the removal.
Okay, I just wanted, I thought that's what got added.
Yeah.
Can I ask, if you replant another tree, did you not say it should be an overstory, or did I miss something?
I did, but Commissioner Burling said lower.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
What did you just ask, Jerry?
Well, an oak's not considered an overstory tree, a live oak, whereas a pine or a larger tree such as a redwood or a cypress wood.
No, it should be another oak as far as
Okay.
I think that was your motion.
It was my motion, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on. To orders of business, I know, Justin, we're going to hear your report. I had a quick question, Mary. I thought we had an agenda item to discuss forest and beach priorities. We had talked about that, but it didn't get distributed.
You are correct.
Okay.
Next month.
Okay, so can we just make sure we include that in next month's agenda? Okay. And since we're all here, as we anticipate that for next month's agenda, if all the commissioners could just take a moment to think about, I thought it would be, I brought some items, but I think if everybody could think about what we believe are the important things we should be focusing on as a commission across the, I don't know if we want to do calendar year or fiscal year, we can talk about that when we meet next week, but also think of it in terms of the forest and also the beach. So I think it would be ideal if we could come up with what are our top couple of priorities for each, and then how do we want to put a scorecard in place to kind of measure our action or progress against those. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. I wasn't allowed to email that out, so nice that we could mention that now and have a shorter meeting. Okay,
And we
so
can-
with that, let's.
Yeah. We can talk all about that, the future agenda. We can dial it in at the future
Yeah, that's
agenda
fine.
items
So
too.
so let's go ahead and move to Justin, your.
Forester's report.
Forester's report, that will be our last item for today. Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
Makes up for last month, if you average them.
All right. This
Thank you,
is
Justin. Okay.
the March 2025 Forester's report. Just going through the normal sections we have here on the updates. So Nikki Nedeff, our biological consultant, has been working with the Forest and Beach and staff to finalize edits from our October public meeting for the Carmel Forest Master Plan. We're getting pretty far. We're almost there with the edits, you think? And we will be, once that is we have a draft we're happy with, we will be sending out invites to get everybody's availability from the Forest and Beach Commission and the steering committee to have our second public public meeting, informational meeting where we take public comment and go over the new draft that we will be presenting for CEQA analysis. Our contractors have been very busy. West Coast Arborists hauled all the logs away from Rio Park and also cleaned up Forest Theater. They removed the large dead stem that's been there since the storms of 2023 and another tree that was heavily decayed and pruned a lot of the trees. It looks really good. Topes right now is finishing up their task order, and I think they're just finished today, and now I've given them some more trees to go remove, so they're out and about removing trees, and also they have been really quick on responding to emergencies. There was a tree that fell over onto the power line, not the power lines, onto the guy wire across the street from Sunset Center. 2 Fridays ago they were out, that took that away, which was amazing, and then another tree that fell into a house on 2nd Avenue one night. Community Tree Service has been pruning and removing dead and dangerous trees, and also a lot of large stumps. I don't know if you've noticed some of the tall totem pole stumps disappearing, like the one on Santa Fe on the way into town. And then they were issued a task order for all the stumps in the downtown business district, which totaled 60 stumps that were all ground and backfilled with new soil. And I've given those sites to the Friends of Carmel Forest to help us in our replanting efforts. The crew removed 10 dead, dangerous, and dying trees and 1 stump and pruned 27 trees last month. And also they were going around town picking up a lot of logs from the PG&E removals, because those seem to be amping up a lot. PG&E's going forward with a lot of their yearly maintenance. There's the graph of the tree work. Not a lot of stumps, I understand, because the city. Wait, what's this here? Stumps. We have been low on planting, and I know that last year we really were pushing planting, but we realizing now that it's just keeping the trees alive once they're planted is just not something we have total capacity for. So we will I'm working with the support groups to help us with the planting, and also we've reached out to our landscape contractor to provide watering services to the newly planted trees, so we don't have to have a staff member go out and water. Like it took them almost a whole week to water all the trees in town, and then they're back at it. It's like a job. We took in 31.
So Justin, if we go back though to the year on year, we're like 3/4 of the way through 2025, and we're way behind versus if you would just take 3/4 of like 2024 data. We're under indexing on removals and prunings and stumps. And I thought last year we had like 1,200 trees. I mean, I know the city was only planning to do a portion of them, but this would suggest that we're way behind on any, like deferred maintenance catch-up that we were attempting to do this year.
Well, the stumps are going to go way up. We've got a task order for community to do all the stumps south of Ocean, which is another 200 stumps.
So it sounds like in the fourth quarter of the current fiscal, you're going to significantly increase the amount of tree work here.
Yes.
Under the gun in the last quarter.
Yes.
Right?
Like same happened last year. And,
okay.
And
is there, I guess this is part of the thing on the whole deferred maintenance, like if there was a way that we didn't end up just having, I don't know why, but like when we shove it all into the last quarter,
mm-hmm.
it's harder, I think, to manage, right? Because even it's not like we have a scheduled plan that we're implementing evenly across the year. And I think the other thing is that it's really important with the deferred maintenance somehow to get information into the Friday letter or the website or something,
mm-hmm.
because we're going to start hearing community feedback. Like people are saying, "Oh, there's trees coming down. Why are trees coming down?" Well, we're behind. We have like 1,000 trees that need to come down right now that are not safe for our community.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's going to be more tree work, not less of it. But somehow we need to help our community understand that the trees coming down are not coming down for sport.
Yeah.
They're coming down for safety.
Yes.
Right? And that we're working on a plan to bring more trees, specific kinds of trees, but we can't have a planting program and a thriving planting program until we catch up what we're behind on. Right?
Yes, and these numbers here, the removals are strictly the city crew.
Right, I see that. But even the city, I mean, I think part of the catch-up plan that we presented, was presented to City Council, showed that the city staff was going to take on a certain amount of the burden to reduce the cost.
Yes.
And that this data would suggest that that hasn't happened.
Well, we're short-staffed too. We're working on a short-staffed tree crew right now.
Right.
And luckily we just got the new crew member in February, but for a while it was just a two-man crew.
Right.
So
the tracking isn't at all to place blame. It's more to just make sure we have the accurate perspective about where we are versus where we want to be.
Of course.
And getting a plan in place that allows us to make progress, or if we're not making progress, to address are there things we need to do, right?
Totally, I understand.
Yeah.
And I have a comment/question for you, Justin.
Yes.
Because something I've been really pleased to see is I am seeing everywhere tree stumps with white X's and all the flags,
mm-hmm.
and I've seen all of the folks coming out to check if there's any, anything. So I am seeing that left, right, and center. So I'm really pleased to see all the stumps that you've identified that appear. I'm assuming they're going to be coming out soon.
Yes, because you are south of Ocean. You're, like I said, community has marked them all, and
I've seen them.
They're ready to go.
Okay, so I was really happy. I walk the streets a lot, so I've seen that everywhere. So I'm excited for those to come out.
And if you notice downtown too, that they're all the tree wells the stumps have been ground out, and there's a nice place with nice soil. So
and we just have the one stump grinder, or are we
contracting it
to get all the
Our stump grinder's not very big. It's good for small jobs, but it's at scale. It's a lot more efficient to have the contractor do it, and then they have the big equipment to backfill with everything.
Okay, great. Thank you. I am seeing it.
There's definitely an increase in work. There's no question. Even walking or driving across town, I see tree work signs everywhere right now. You can't go very far without seeing them. Right. But I do feel like that might be something really useful to put in a Friday letter.
Absolutely.
Just an update that, hey, we're coming into the last quarter of the fiscal year. We're really trying to catch up on some of because I think otherwise people who aren't aware that we have these trees to take down, or we have these things to take care of. I think we're going to get calls. Your phone's going to be ringing about why are these trees coming down, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it helps us to have our community understand the plan.
No, I understand, and it makes sense, and it's
get our PR department on that.
Yeah, exactly. The social media team, once they adopt it.
Where's the 18-year-olds?
Okay, where are we at?
Who needs a summer internship?
Yeah, I know, that's exactly.
So we took in 31 permits and processed 24 permits. Like I said, we're below our replanting and required replanting numbers, but we are trying to formulate the plan for that, at least for the city trees, to at least up the required, just to get what we need to plant, and then I'm going to work with, like I said, the support groups to see how we can get those in the areas that they need to go, because we've got with all these stumps disappearing, we have all these planting spaces, so there's place to plant trees, and we need to plant them where they need to go in the right place.
With natives, right? Like I think this is where the preferred tree list
Yeah,
in the city
and
places.
Nikki said she's going to work on that.
Yeah.
That's like the next thing, or one of the last things for her to finish is the preferred planting list.
And are there any issues in like getting resources to help with the planting?
Not yet. I mean, the Friends of Carmel Forest, they're limited, but I think they've been getting a lot of donations, and they seem very eager, and they're easy to work with. I like working with them a lot.
Okay.
I think the key thing is right tree in the right place.
Yes.
And watering and maintenance plan, right? You know, I have some people have asked me, like, should we be planting anything because we can't take care of what we have right now, right? And so there's a question about, I mean, it's a practical question, right?
It's a matter of resources, and it's tough because we don't want that. I mean, I feel like that's where we got into the hole, is that with the deferred maintenance, is we kept trees for so long because if no one was replanting, and then we kept trees because we needed trees, but then there was the gap of no replanting and decadent mature trees, so there's this imbalance
Right now in the forest.
I think, and then COVID made it just worse. That's what I've gathered from talking to former council members and commissioners. And we took in 189 tickets through our ticketing system and resolved 182. So here is the master plan catch-up. I'm doing my best to fit it into a palatable way that you guys like, mixing what we do and mixing what you do, and let me know what you think. So 8 trees, the good trees were removed, 18 fair trees, but this is from the fiscal year. So I know we need to track month over month, so that's the one thing that would be maybe just do a line each month. I'm just trying to figure out how this should all look and not be too messy, because I know that it could get out of control with numbers. Some of these numbers are so high. But in terms of the 3-year catch-up plan, our goal was to remove 128 this fiscal year, and we've removed 162, and 221 stumps this fiscal year, but we're only at 128. So overall, the plan this fiscal year is to remove 300 stumps with the downtown district and the south of Ocean. That community is currently working on, and that'll give us.
Was the 128 removal city or all city and contractor?
Just total.
I thought it was higher than that, because we had 3 years to catch up like 1,100 trees. Anyhow, we can look at it
we'll
later.
look at the numbers.
We should look at it separate later.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the lower graph, like I did it last month, I like to show just how the changes in status of the trees as living things. And it's just, we look at a poor tree or a healthy tree even, and within a year to 6 months, a good tree goes to being a dead tree. And it's just the ever-shifting numbers, but at the same time, that doesn't change the numbers we gave to city council. So I understand that too.
And there's definition for what's an excellent, good, fair, poor tree written down somewhere?
Yeah, in the plan given to us by Davey.
It's in the Davey plan. Do I have access to that, or do we have access to it? I'd like to just understand.
I can find it. I'll find it for you.
Yeah.
Because it seems not black and white, but it seems pretty black and white that they set this out, so there has to be a clear definition.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a follow-on question. I think I'd mentioned this before. I think there's like a percentage of trees that are not in your tree keeper system.
There are some. There are Mission Trail and Upper Forest Hill Park and a few places here and there.
Is it possible to get that information? Because what I'm thinking, again, you talked about watering, and I appreciate your comment there. Mm-hmm. It's kind of really important that we water the trees because otherwise they'll die, and that's just an obvious statement. But having a complete inventory of all the trees here, it's going to help us better put a plan in place. You know, I don't want us to kind of not be watering trees because we don't know about them, for example.
We put in the system when they're planted, we put them in Tree Keeper as like a newly planted tree. So we have them, we have a list, especially, because a lot of trees were planted for a former grant that was no longer here. But when we plant the new trees, we change it through the system. You can apply rules, vacant site, stump, grind the stump, turn it into a vacant site. Then we put in it's a new 2-inch or 1-inch oak tree. So we are tracking that, and especially now that all the stumps are ground and we've been asked to audit everything in downtown, we'll double, triple check to make sure that each one is identified and is on the watering list that goes to Town and Country.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we've got a complete universe of all the trees. I mean,
no,
just being honest, complete universe of all the trees that are under the realm of Carmel-by-the-Sea, that we can track them. And it's not, I just want to make sure it's not in Tree Keeper because somebody else, some other group planted it and they don't have access to, or they don't know how to get it into our system. That's all I'm saying.
No, it's not. No, if it's planted, if someone else plants it, we're going to put it in Tree Keeper no matter what, because then otherwise it won't be able to be maintained.
Right.
Okay. If we don't know about it, we can't maintain it.
Yeah.
Except on private property.
Yes, we don't, and we don't track.
So the Tree Keeper has some private trees, but not all. It has a private tree if you've...
It's mostly like per permit. Like
if you've consulted on a permit, it puts it in Tree Keeper. But so you just, any data query, you just have to extract like the private ones that are in there. They're tagged non-city tree, right? Yeah, okay.
Justin, I have a question. Do we only plant during certain months of the year, or do we plant year-round new trees?
Plant year-round.
Do you find that when we're planting during the warmer months that we have more loss?
It's hard to say without a baseline of the same treatment all the time, because we can plant a tree in the winter and it goes through the rainy season, but then we have a warm summer and we don't water it. I mean, it's hard to say without consistency, because it's been so hard to maintain all of these and our crews have been dragged so far. I mean, ideally, we'd want to plant in the fall before winter like we had, so they can water in. And, driving around, I see a lot of trees that we planted last year that are doing well because they're watered just enough to get to a natural rainy season, and they're doing really well.
Yeah, I just hate to see us use our time and our resources to plant during months where we may suffer more loss.
Well, and that's why I've had to dial it back, because it's not just the planting, but then we buy the trees, and then the water's not expensive, but it's labor intensive.
It's labor intensive. I just know what most of us do in our own homes. I don't plant things like that during certain months of the year because I know that my chances of losing them is much higher. Yeah. So just, even just to start to put some of those practices in, might not plant during the summer months,
Yeah.
you know, for example.
Yeah. And that,
It really points to having a strategic plan around
Well, we do.
planting also. right?
Absolutely.
And then I think the other, you know, maybe for consideration, we have a lot of people that love trees in this town, you know, and we have, you know, Carmel Cares has put together, they have the beach pups, you know, doing the beach. We have the, Carmel Cares has a group doing scenic pathway, you know, I don't know, it's a question. Maybe we should see if Friends of the Forest or one of our forest-friendly organizations would be interested in, like, for all these right, we had 1,100 stumps that were identified. I don't know how many stumps we have out this year. You said 300 or something, right? So that's 300 stumps where you're hoping to plant 300 trees. You know, maybe we get like Friends of the Forest that is a stump team that's checking on those 300 new trees as they get put in the ground, and that there's just some kind of reporting that goes in Treekeeper that, you know, that we have lots of resources we can leverage outside of the city staff that we should be partnering or telling people, hey, we have a need. I bet if we went to Friends of the Forest and said, hey, can you model something like the Beach Pups cleans the beach a couple times a week, can you guys start checking the trees that are being planted in the stumps? Maybe we could get, they would be open to doing something like that, right?
somebody, I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there.
I wonder if there's any way of getting, of seeing if some of the population would be interested in picking one tree and making sure that one lives.
Other cities have done that. It's kind of like you adopt the tree in front of your house.
Like adopting a tree.
But then, you know, some happen that, you know, there's a tree that, been trees that have disappeared because they don't want them in front of the house. You know? And I've seen Friends of Carmel Forest. I know. I've seen Friends of Carmel Forest stakes be destroyed because I don't want a tree in front of my house. That's my parking spot. Stuff like that. But I think that is programs.
But that goes back to the right tree in the right place, right?
Well,
you know, so
but
maybe
you know, some people there's no right tree for their place. But yeah, no, exactly. You're right. Right tree, right place.
right. Okay.
All right.
Any other comments on Justin's report? No. Okay. I think this might be the shortest meeting that we've ever had. Okay.
Shortest one last year.
Yvette, are you good if we adjourn the meeting? Okay, all right, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much.
Remember the one from 8 o'clock or 8:30 when we finished?